What's up? What's happening on a Friday? Happy to be with you. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are indeed streaming live today on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. Very excited about that. Looking at the feed, the audio is very hot. Sorry for screaming on everyone in YouTube's ear. I'll get that fixed in the next break. But very excited to be broadcasting live. And Anthony was just on YouTube. You're doing great. You're doing a fantastic job, sir. But I'm broadcasting from my childhood radio station, which is very cool. I won't waste too much time on it now. But I walked in and was like, wow, okay, here we are. This is the station I interned at, or the building I interned in over a decade ago at this point. God, almost 15 years ago, Anthony.
You're so young, man.
I know. I'm not old enough to have interned somewhere 15 years ago. I was 3. It's bizarre. They let me intern, and it's some of the stuff they taught me stuck to the point that here I am now. Anyway, point is, happy that we could figure out the streaming situation, so you can watch on YouTube today. But other than that, if you're listening on the radio, hopefully it sounds the exact same as always. So we start today with the Commanders starting their post-draft transactions. They start by cutting Chase Roullier, which is something that, frankly, I've thought was going to happen for a long time. Roullier is a guy who is a great story, honestly. Like he's a quintessential classic NFL story, and I don't want that to get lost in this, because I feel like when we talk about contracts and salary space or salary caps and all that kind of stuff, it's very easy to dehumanize people and not appreciate what they did, especially when it gets to the point that Chase Roullier is now, where it's this is the correct move. But Chase, 6th round pick. There's a bunch of injuries and some poor play from guys like Spencer Long back in the day. Ultimately, Spencer leaves and goes to New York and can, kind of picked his career back up with some good years with the Jets. But, bounce back and forth. Is he a center? Is he a guard? And, the only thing we really knew about Chase, and this is back when I was on the beat. He was a young guy. I talked to him for some stories. Got some great quotes from him. But he was Josh Allen's center at Wyoming, and that was kind of the fun fact about Chase Roullier. And all of a sudden we look up and it's like, is this dude one of the best centers in the NFL? Okay, maybe not he's one of the best, but he's probably one of the 10 best. That seems worth something. And sure enough, as Ron Rivera comes in early 2020, and they're kind of taking inventory and moving some things around, shaking some things here, wiggling some things there, and they realize that Chase Roullier is a really important piece for them, and they give him a big, gigantic extension. And that was the right move. Lock up a guy who's good for you, great for the room. You don't have to worry about in any kind of way. He's going to be prepared. He's going to be studied up, which at the center position is essential. He's capable of not just being a good blocker, but in the system they were running, it was a very center-based system in terms of protections and things. And he was going to nail that stuff. He was super smart, great communicator. And unfortunately, he just got hurt. It's just the way it is sometimes in the NFL, where you have guys that get banged up, and it happens far less now, thankfully, due to sports science and medicine advances and all those things, where you don't have guys that have career-ending injuries very often, especially in their mid to late 20s. But by the time Roulier's, 28 years old, he has this really devastating lower leg injury, battles like hell to get back, and then the next year, which was last year, he has a pretty significant injury again. And at that point, even if you can get back, to what level? You lose, if you're not a guy that's a Jason Kelsey, who's an athletic freak for the position. If you're not, Trent Williams, and, you can afford to lose a little athleticism as you get older or something like that. If you're just a really solid, good football player, can you afford to get hurt, come back, lose a little bit here, lose a little bit there, be rusty, and and also is it something you really want to do? And it does sound like Chase put in a legitimate effort. I think he's been rehabbing, but everything that I've heard all off season is there were serious doubts in the building that he was going to get back. And ultimately, after they draft Ricky Stromberg a week ago tonight, they pull the plug. They make the move. They've got Nick Yates. They've got Tyler Larson as a backup. They've got Stromberg now as the likely starter, him or Gates. And there's just no room for Chase on the roster. There's no real point in putting him through camp. At this point, it's the nice thing to do to cut bait with him, let him go. And if he wants to try to compete on another team, let him do that because they are ready to move on here. And it's also a fair, like, as hard as Chase has worked, as good of a guy as he's been, as great of a teammate and all that kind of stuff, this is the right decision for the franchise. One thing Ron was specific about was getting younger at the position because the injuries to Roullier, the injuries to Larson, and in theory, younger guys are going to be more resilient. And now they've gotten that. While Larson's still here a year older, it's a little different when you're the fourth guy or the third guy in Larson's case than you are the first or second guy. Gates, while he's had injuries in the past, is younger at 27 and is finally turned the corner from a health perspective last year, and then obviously, Stromberg coming out as a rookie at 23 or 22 years old, you'd hope is going to be resilient enough to stand up, to a 17-game NFL schedule. That and the financials of this made this a no-brainer. So, hey, Chase, thanks. We look forward to you coming back for alumni events in the future, but it's time for you to go and find something else to do or retire, sit on your money because you earned it, and enjoy whatever's the next phase of your life. As for what this does for the team now, this is why, even yesterday, I know Russell did a long time of it. We had Chris on the show in the 6 o'clock hour to discuss the Kendall Fuller stuff. The Kendall conversation is admittedly sexier for the sheer fact that he's a guy that I think has a future. It's a hotter topic. It's a hotter debate because Kendall Fuller's still a good football player. He's still definitely a football player. Again, there's a chance Chase Roullier just retires. I don't know that that's going to happen. There's great chance he doesn't. But, it's a hotter button issue what they do with Fuller. But realistically, they didn't need to cut Kendall Fuller because this move was always coming in some form or fashion. Now, to dot the I's and cross the T's here, he is a post-June 1st designation cut. What that does is allow you to split the remaining dead cap money between the rest of the years on the contract. So this, instead of just taking the entire cap hit this year, where you save $4 million by cutting Roullier as a pre-June 1 designation, and it still costs you $8 million in dead cap, they're able to prorate it until next year, post-June 1st. They save $8 million on the cap this year, and we'll have roughly $4 million dead cap money, not just this year, but next year as well. So that's how the June 1st stuff works. What this does immediately by cutting him and that post-June 1st designation means that they have about $11 million in cap space, which means they have room to sign their draft picks and then some. Not a lot. They don't have enough probably. Well, it depends on what the first year of an extension looks like for Cam Curl. I would think that there's probably another move or two coming before they would have the space they want to be able to do that. Because the other thing, too, is you want to enter the season with about $5 million in cap space. And if you just sign your draft class, if you got 11, your draft class is typically about 5 to 6. Well, there's your $5 million. You're now in the position you want to be going into training camp, when you're going to have to sign some other guys, where you have some space to sign, if someone else does what the Commanders just did to Chase, and what the Commanders were able to do with Charles Leno a couple years ago after the Bears cut him. The post-draft cuts are coming. You now have space to potentially get into that market. By the way, part of that market last year was Andrew Norwell, Trey Turner. I think more specifically Turner. But Norwell is going to be a part of it this year. He's probably also getting cut, maybe by the end of the day. Who knows? Might be in a couple of weeks after some OTA sessions. They see how Chris Paul and Sadiq Charles are doing at that left guard spot, where they know Norwell is the floor. I don't really like that as the floor. It's lower floor than I want it to be. But they can also see what else is out there. So ultimately, that's where the Commanders stand. And that's kind of technocratic in a lot of ways. But they save $8 million on the cap this year. They're in a good space moving forward. They have the ability to make more moves. And they still don't have to cut a guy who could start for them in Kendall Fuller. So what is next for the Commanders now? What positions are they actually set at? Which positions do they need to add? Because there also is one other move they need to make that they haven't yet that I'm pretty surprised about. We'll discuss that before Clinton Yates joins us at 4:30 to talk about Steph Curry and the Warriors bouncing back against the Lakers last night and whether he's got Curry as a top 5 all-time NBA player. That's to come this hour on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
The potential end of the Dan Snyder era, a QB search, free agency, and the NFL Draft. Follow every move of the most significant offseason in Commanders history on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
Cybersecurity is in flux across the public sector. Traditional processes and tools just can't keep up. Join Palo Alto Networks on May 16th in Tysons, Virginia for Public Sector Ignite 23, the industry's premier cyber conference for the federal government. Meet leading cybersecurity experts. Explore what's next in cybersecurity. Get hands-on experience with next-gen technologies and AI.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app. Clinton Yates joining us bottom of the hour. Toby Altizer, our colleague here at the Team 980, who came to us not that long ago from Milwaukee, is going to join us at the top of the hour for Not Mine Beat. As Toby obviously covered the Bucks when he was in Milwaukee. Bucks make surprise move last night, firing Mike Budenholzer. We'll consider that the day's top story because I think it speaks to like a larger thing in the NBA. And I want to talk with Toby, who's a great young host with us here at Odyssey DC. As I say that ironically, here at there at Odyssey DC, Anthony, because I'm at Odyssey Greenville, South Carolina right now. But Toby, actually, true story. So I walk in, and the guys here are awesome. A couple of engineers helping me out, and then Mark, the operations man down here, and he's like, "Do you know Toby Altizer?" And I was like, "I sure do. He's on the show today." He's like, "Yeah, he because they have a sports station down here, which I've been lucky enough to be a guest on a bunch. It's always fun." It's like, "Hey, yeah, I really grew up there," but he's like, "Yeah, Toby used to fill in for me all the time." So the building I'm in right now, Toby has done a lot of broadcasts on the station that's like down the hall.
That's dope.
Yeah, so that's fun. I did ask my guy Mark Ryan, who is the host on afternoons for ESPN Upstate, which is our Odyssey station down here. He's on vacation this week. I'm like, dagger. It's my. I've been trying to say hi to Mark in person for like 4 years.
You just want to give him a big old hug.
Yeah, I'd be like, "What's up, man? Good to finally see you." He always does like a. It's actually funny. One more quick story, and then we'll get back into the Commanders and their cap situation. But, every single year, Mark does something we actually talked about doing this year, but we thought of copying the idea too late to the draft, where we have someone come on from every city around the country and do like a mock draft over the course of a couple of weeks, one pick at a time. And I always do the Washington pick for him. Well, this year we were scheduled to do it on the day that Harris bought the team.
Dang.
So that comes out, what was that, like noon? Yeah, it was like noon, 12:30.
Yep.
And I just completely forgot. They were running late on a segment, and then we're sitting there in like my production booth that I always prepare in for the show, and I look down and see a number calling, and I'm like, what's this all about? Pick up, and it's like, "Hey, I'm so sorry we're late. It's, this is a producer from whatever, Upstate. Can you still come on?" I was like, honestly, not today, man. We can do it tomorrow. I'm happy to do it tomorrow. I love doing this with you guys every year. But I don't know if you saw the news. And my show starts in 20 minutes. Now's not a good time, proverbially and literally speaking. It was a great time, but not a good time, if you catch my drift. All right, so that begs the question. What are the Commanders going to do next? As they have now got Chase Roullier, his papers said, "All right, sir, thank you for your service. It's time to go. We're going to take the $8 million in cap space." Well, I think it's also important to remember they've already done a lot of stuff, right? They cut Carson Wentz, which saved them the $28 million. They saved another couple mil with J.D. McKissick. They saved another couple mil with Bobby McCain. And they've replaced a lot of those guys, right? They have their third running back in the draft, the kid out of Kentucky. They have another nickel safety hybrid player like McCain was. And, I actually feel bad for Bobby because I think Bobby got a little bit of a bad rap by the end. He had some rough moments for sure last year, but they found a role. Like, he was really important for them at the tail end of last year. As they started to turn things around on that defense. Yes, Cam Curl was the most important piece, and getting Curl where McCain was, but also McCain really saved them in the nickel. He played a lot of slot for them, a lot of nickel, and did a very good job in there. And so Quan Martin coming in, replacing him is an essential part, obviously, of their success. He is basically the Bobby McCain replacement, and hopefully a significant upgrade. I'm not telling you that he shouldn't be a significant upgrade, but that is, that's kind of where they've gone now. Now, the question is, who's next, right? One, Andrew Norwell seems obvious. He's basically, every time Ron's asked about left guard, he's like, yeah, Chris Paul, Sadiq Charles, Sadiq Charles, Chris Paul, they'll battle it out. We're hoping one of them is taking a big leap and is ready to go. And then someone's like, hey, you also got Andrew Norwell. He's like, oh, yeah, he'll be in there. No, he won't. Andrew Norwell will be gone. And that's another couple million. But it's not a big – it's more of a roster spot and less of a cap situation. But, it's enough cap savings that, you can sign like your back-end draft picks potentially with what you'll save, like $1 million or $2 million off the cap. The other two big ones, I think, fall into the exact same camp. They both save. Actually, let me look this up real quick. Anthony, do you happen to know the numbers on Fuller? I know is 8. Do you know Logan Thomas's number? Logan Thomas over the cap. This is always good radio right here. Let's see. Thomas is you save 5.1 if you do it pre-June 1st with 3.5 in dead cap. You save 6.9 this year if you cut him, and he's got very little. He's got some prorated bonus, but he's got no guaranteed salary. So you can, and that's by the way for the next 2 years too. So you can see if one of these tight ends develops this year, and then next year move on for the same exact thing. You got 1.75 in dead money each of the next 2 years. You designate him as a post-June cut. You save 6.92 million, and with both him and Fuller, where the numbers are actually a little bit even steeper with Kendall, I just don't get the rush to do it. And we talked about this extensively in the 6 o'clock hour with Russell yesterday. Like, everyone's whining about tight end. Oh, they didn't draft a tight end. How could they not have drafted a tight end? These young guys haven't done anything. They didn't do anything last year. Thomas didn't, he was hurt. It's like, well, hold on. One of those things is not like the other. One of those things is guy got hurt, didn't perform as well when he got back, still looked hurt, and by the end of the year, athletically, looked less hurt. And, oh, by the way, played with a quarterback in Taylor Heineke who doesn't really throw to tight ends a lot. That, like, when Logan got back, Taylor was in there. Taylor likes taking his shots to the outside. What are we talking about? He threw it over the middle some. Carson also was a disaster over the middle. That's a different story. Anyway, point is, that was not Logan Thomas's prime to success. And Eric Bieniemy has obviously commandeered an offense the last couple of years with the best tight end in the sport, and Travis Kelce, who he's found ways to get matchup after matchup after matchup for. But you'd have to think he can probably also get Logan Thomas open. With the amount of tension that Travis Kelce gets, if he can scheme him open, what's up for Logan Thomas? What's up for Armani Rogers? What's up for these other guys? But especially Thomas, who's been there, done that, has some savvy, has some know-how, and is finally fully healthy. But that's kind of the other point, too, is like on the young guys front, if he can get Armani Rogers open in space, if Bieniemy can, and Howell can hit him with the regularity, or let's call it 75% of the regularity that Mahomes hits Kelce with. You seen Armani Rogers run with the football? That's Anthony. Would you sign up for Armani Rogers getting 5 catches in wide open space every game?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
The way that dude moves? Hell yeah. Get him the ball, get in space. Phew, see ya. Take off. And if it's not him, Curtis Hodges, Cole Turner, like one of these guys has got, you only need one. That's the thing about the tight end position. Thomas is kind of in his own bucket. John Bates is in his own bucket. They're hopefully tight end 1, tight end 2, or at least Bates is locked into tight end 2. And then of the other 3 guys at a position in the NFL where you are looking for traits, that is what you want. You want traits guys. You want big guys, fast guys, strong guys. You've got 3 dudes who are all big, fast, and strong. Different varieties of the 3. Turner and Hodges are freaking huge. They've got the big one down. And, strong enough. Rodgers is blazing fast for his size and is also a big freaking dude. You get one of those guys to be good under Eric Bieniemy's tutelage, your tight end room's set. And so if you get 2 of them to pop, that's when Thomas becomes interesting. That's when maybe you could trade him for a 5th or 6th or 7th round pick at the end of training camp. If he had a good camp, but you want the young guys and someone else is looking for a veteran tight end. That's where you can just move on if you want to and save the cap space for the rest of the year because he does have a non-guaranteed contract. When you cut him, that's it. That's the end. You save the rest of the money on the year. So let's say there is someone who comes available or you got a position of need, someone gets hurt late in camp, you really like the tight ends, someone else gets cut from another camp, you need a little bit extra space, You could cut Logan Thomas then. And the same thing is true for Kendall Fuller. If these young guys pop, if they're great, and you don't really have space for them, okay. But you can treat it like a true, and this I guess is I don't know why I haven't used this phrasing before, Anthony, but this is how I'll phrase it. You can afford this to be a true meritocracy. May the best man, based off the football, win. And for, obviously, your rookies, like, you're not cutting those guys. But it really is about who's the best tight end, who are the best corners. And if Logan Thomas and Kendall Fuller are at the top of that list, you should keep them. You don't need the space. And if not, take the space, roll that salary into next year, that cap space into next year, and then you can hopefully make some splashes, whether it's re-signing your own guys or moving forward with some new ones. All right. When we come back, Lakers, yikes last night. Klay Thompson, a classic. And a topic that we've been kind of teasing all week because initially Clinton Yates was going to join us on Tuesday. Does Clinton Yates have Steph Curry as a top 5 all-time NBA player? We'll talk game, we'll talk history with Yates next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well, youtube.com/@theteam980. Clinton Yates with us for his Friday visit. What up?
Do the people know that you used to be a wedding DJ and you've probably spun that song and probably don't know the words? Do people know that?
I'm sure some do. More do now. That's the nature of.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
like
I don't really
Anthony
care.
Had that thing going, and I was like, I have a feeling that this is a situation where some of us know more about this song than others. That was just my opinion.
Fantastic song, by the way.
Yeah, like I don't mind. Like it's not like I'm ashamed by it. I was like 15 years old. So that's good. Can Yates not Yates?
Yeah,
You hear me now? Okay.
We're back.
We're back. Okay. So that's I don't really care. It's actually kind of hilarious that you brought it up, considering I'm sitting in the radio station that I interned in around the same age many years ago. I had probably DJ'd a couple, like 150 weddings by the time I entered this building when I was 19.
Radio personalities, trust me, you will end up doing a lot of things that involve you talking on microphones before you get to the position of, forget about me, but one, Gregory Hoffman. You just got to learn the business, and this is called paying your dues. So, I mean, you've done that as well.
Yeah, music radio helped shape like how I do this in a major way. Music radio, great thing to get into if you're a young aspiring broadcaster. Being out in front of people with a microphone, also a fantastic skill. So I've been shaped well by my career experiences, and decent friends and mentors. What do you want to talk about
on this Friday today, Craig?
Okay, you just want to get us on track, huh? So that's enough of this sidebar crap. So let's talk about the game first last night, and then we'll get into Curry's place in history, because we were talking about it last weekend, and then we were talking about it when I was going to talk about it on the show on Monday. I'm excited to let people hear kind of where you're at on that. But last night, Warriors bounced back in a major way. They win 127-120. Thompson goes absolutely nuts. And I think a lot of the commentary after the game, Clinton, comes down to this forced change that the Warriors make with Kevon Looney sick, where JaMychal Green starts. They've got more space on the floor, and everyone's like, oh, that's what did it. Is that what did it, or did you think there was more to it last night for the Warriors bouncing back?
I think there was a lot more to it last night than that. I mean, sure, making a lineup change means that you have to make a strategic change, but they had to make a strategic change anyway. The free throw discrepancy in the first game was a disaster, and they had to figure out, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to go to the hole more like we did in game one and have Steph Curry throwing up random flailers against AD that he's not going to land? Or are we going to try to do something to get LeBron and AD out of the paint and get them running around? That's going to make them more tired. That's going to give us a better chance to use our depth in order to win the basketball game. Steve Kerr, who in my opinion is the best coach in the NBA, I do not want to argue with you, so stay off of my mentions, made the adjustment, and it felt like the Lakers were a tired basketball team. And if we're being honest, when you look at the way that the series have shaken out, there's a very important factor here, which is, and I don't want to be this guy, but scheduling matters. The Lakers got a lot of rest in that first round situation. They had 3 games between games, 3 separate times, I believe, and they were the beneficiaries of being able to sort of ease their way in, and it showed in how they played. You get the Lakers running around every other night, they're not as good of a basketball team. It's as simple as that. Whether or not it's from an age standpoint, whether it's from a generalized durability standpoint, which is not related to age, as we know from the NBA, I think that the Warriors said, we got to get on our bicycles, and we can't just be walking in terms of how we're going to play the game, and they ended up blowing them out.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Warriors are the best conditioned team probably in the entire league. Curry's the best conditioned player in the sport. Like he just
Correct.
He just
Not
is.
close.
The way
perhaps ever. If
yeah, the way he plays to sustain that level of excellence, like to dork out about it. Like when you run around that much and you don't lose your fine motor skills and you still shoot like he shoots, like what the hell is that? That's some alien stuff.
That means if you sign up for the Craig Hoffman Meat Stick Club and he's running around for an hour, he's going to be tired too. Just saying. That's what it
the
looks
Meat
like
Stick Club?
to the gym. I don't know. What do you guys I'm trying to find the nicest way to not call you a meathead, because you're not a meathead, but you're really good at exercising. So
yeah, no, but I don't think Meat Stick was it. I think I appreciate the attempt, but damn, we failed the execution. Point is, I agree with
That
you.
was Lakers-like in its execution.
Yeah, exactly. Wanting more. Like the thing with Golden State, like, and the lineup adjustment is it played into each other too, because there's just so much more space. And Curry being on the ball, like, I don't know what and like, to me, that's always, Clinton, what playoff series are. It's a series of adjustments back and forth until someone hits an adjustment that the other team can't get to. And I really don't know. I know we're only one game in. I don't know what the adjustment is for the Lakers outside of play better. Anthony Davis hit the shots. LeBron hit the shots, because they can't play a different way. There's only so much they're going to be able to slow the game down. I think the Lakers are in real trouble here.
Meat Stick, by the way, is a Gilmore Girls reference. For those of you who don't know, you can look that up on your own. But I think that you're right. And here's the deal, is that this is where depth comes in. They don't have as many buttons to press, the Lakers. And more specifically, the one button they have to press in AD is a bigger button proportionally to the rest of the buttons that everybody else has to press. They've got one sort of red light that is AD. If AD's not playing well, they can't win. I think the Warriors have multiple guys where if they're not playing well, they still can win. That's the whole point of having continuity in your system. That's the whole point of having depth from a general talent level. So, yeah, I mean, look, do I think that there is a path, and I said this on television the other day, for the Lakers to get to the finals? I do, but it would involve a lot of breakdowns, perhaps from other teams, and it would involve Anthony Davis turning into basically the playoff MVP, which would lead to the finals MVP. There's just no way that he's not the best player on the floor every night for the Lakers, and they actually win games. Now, that said, I think they've gone as he's gone, and he's done quite well. You know what I'm saying? And let's not forget, if they get through this series, which I am not assuming remotely, but this similarly constructed, even if not technically the same Lakers and Nuggets teams, well, the Lakers beat the Nuggets. Did it take a buzzer beater from AD in the bubble? It did. But I don't think that there's a world in which, let's just say that the Lakers get to the next round, that they're afraid of the Nuggets. They just might not be as good. And that's kind of what's going on in this Warriors series as well. AD can have the game of his life. A hobbled LeBron can extend and, contribute in a way that makes a lot of sense. Let's just say AR-15 goes, Austin Reeves, goes off in terms of his ability to really contribute the way that he should. And let's just say that, let's insert another person here, the Vandalorian shuts down a bunch of people. They still might lose the game. That's right. The thing about the Lakers is that the ceiling of their talent is not necessarily enough to beat the tippy top teams in the NBA, never mind teams with experience doing it, the Warriors being that team, the Nuggets not being that team.
Right. Clinton Yates with us, not only ESPN, Around the Horn, et cetera, but does a lot of radio out in LA on ESPN 710. What is kind of the local feel around Davis? I know Brian Windhorst was saying this morning on Get Up, like, the Lakers get frustrated as hell by Davis because they both live and die by him. There are nights where it's like, thank God we have him. He's one of the 5 best players in basketball. And then the next night, while still super impactful defensively, the offensive numbers just fluctuate so much. So what's kind of the general vibe around AD and the, I would say, the ability for this team to elevate where they want to go, win a championship moving forward with him?
I think it's been what it's been since he got here, which is take what you can get. Guy's the best player on the team. That's about it. If you get a little too heavily invested in whether or not AD is going to be able to play 35 to 40 minutes a night, you're going to be pretty disappointed on a regular basis, because that's just not what we've seen from him as a player, but we've seen the top side. So I think people understand how critical he is to the team, but they really kind of have a lot of disdain for the fact that he isn't the most durable player basically in the league, and look, that's an understandable beef. But at the same time, this is the roster you constructed. So you're going to have to live with it. And that's kind of where I think a little bit of the frustration comes in, is that, yeah, you wish you had somebody that was around more than AD, but do you think that you could wish for somebody that was legitimately better than him at the top? Probably not. So that's just sort of a contradiction that you kind of have to live with in terms of who this team has built themselves as in the last 3-4 seasons.
Yeah, the one thing I will defend Davis on is he is consistently great defensively. Night in, night out, he is a menace. Like, the stuff that he causes other teams to do is nuts. The problem is, like, when it's the Warriors, we're going to force you to take long twos. Okay, we'll just hit them at 60% because right. I'm Steph and bleeping Curry.
Skill. You know what I mean? If we're being honest. And I think that was the case when he was even in college. You know what I mean? Like, defensively, he's a problem. The scoring is one thing. You could potentially replace that. You can't replace that wingspan. You can't replace his ability to find people on the floor. And if he's not doing that well, it doesn't matter either way.
Glenn Yates with us from ESPN here on the Hoffman Show, his weekly Friday visit. All right. Curry drops 50 in Game 7. Everyone's losing their mind, appropriately so, because we literally never seen that before. I went on Twitter and I was like, we got to start having a discussion about him being top 10. I sit down to actually do the exercise and I go, holy crap, it's not even close. He's actually bordering on the top 5. Do you have him in your all-time top 5?
I do. I don't know that I keep my top 5 handy in my wallet, so to speak, but I don't know that I'm living in a world in which I could name 5 basketball players that are definitively better than Steph Curry for a multitude of reasons. Reminder, I'm also the kind of person that believes that the Warriors team that lost to the Cavs in the finals was still the best basketball team in the NBA I've ever seen. I did as much when we did our Last Dance top 5 teams ever picks, and I had the Warriors top 1, and people were like, what do you mean? They didn't even win the title. I'm like, did you watch the basketball? I mean, what are we talking about? And the Magic Johnson conversation comes up a lot because people try to get positional with it. And the same thing I ask every single time I ask people, if we're doing a 1v1 comparison, we can get into this, that, and a third about numbers and rings mountain and trophies, which, by the way, Wardell has quite the resume on. Get to the MVP race if you want to know about that. Only unanimous winner ever. And I thought to myself, again, when there's just 2 people against each other, who would you rather have? If I'm standing on the playground right now and there's Magic Johnson and Steph Curry, Clinton Yates, 42-year-old man from D.C., I'm picking Steph. And it's not that it's got to be like Magic is trash. That's not even close to what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, like, when I watch the basketball and I think about the basketball and what I know about the game and what I've seen about the game and what I've covered and what I know about how guys operate, I'm picking Steph. You know what I mean? Better shooter, better defender, equally good passer. That's my personal opinion. Is he the same type of leader? No. They came up in different eras of the game. They're completely different personalities as far as the human beings are concerned. But if you ask me the basketball, yeah, I'd probably pick Steph over Magic in terms of who I want on my team to win. And that's not a knock. You know what I'm saying? Magic Johnson, arguably one of the 5 most important players in the history of the league. Certainly. And I think Steph's on that list too.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the leadership thing, because Magic was so dynamic as a leader and obviously was able to bring guys together. But to me, Steph has like a Duncan-esque quality in that way. And, when Kobe fans can be the absolute worst because their sense of what their guy is inflated because he looked like Jordan. It was the most similar to what we'd seen from MJ, who broke all of our brains, and that was apparently the only thing greatness could look like for about 20 years. Right. And it's like, actually, no. But, when you're talking about like Kobe, Duncan and that same era, I put Duncan up over Kobe because Kobe does, from a production standpoint, have that dearth in the middle of his career where he misses the playoffs, and a lot of that was due to his personality. And like, that's not even ignoring the obviously very serious, much more important in the grand scheme of life off the court stuff. But like the fact that those teams broke up is a direct reflection on him. Part of the reason he was able to get Powell on board and win championships later is because he learned from some of those mistakes as a basketball player. Again, keeping it context, basketball only. Duncan is 50 wins a year every year for basically 15 years because he was so easy to play with. They were able to keep that core together, and it was about the team and about all of that. I think Curry's the same way, which to me elevates him up. Again, a different type of leader than Magic, and you could make arguments about leadership style, etc. But to me, that's part of why they're 5 or 6 all time, is the skill is unmatched. He changed the game. He's a generational talent, and he is one of the easiest players to play with that has ever stepped on a basketball court for both skill and personality reasons.
I have 2 things to combat that with is that I don't blame people for liking people for the reasons they like people, but I don't necessarily mean that it thinks that they're correct. And in the case of Kobe, I think his leadership style worked for A, not just what that fan base was, but also B, what that franchise is. And Duncan and Curry have had the luxury of being with franchises, frankly, that were better run operations than the Lakers. People like to believe that just because the Lakers have a lot of rings historically and they're a big show, that everything sort of goes well there in terms of operationally. It doesn't. And I think that Kobe's identity was almost bigger than the team. It was a franchise identity. And neither one of Duncan nor Curry has had to do that. It's something that became the case because of the players that they were. But Kobe had a bigger burden, in my opinion. So I don't know that in the larger rankings, I compare those the same way.
Whatever it's worth, I would say the same thing about Jordan, right? Like,
yeah,
he was
true.
so
right.
damn
that's
good
exactly
that it didn't matter. They won 3 in a row, but he also, like, that's why he was burnt out and he had to leave, right?
Yeah,
like,
no, I totally
that
agree with you.
that demanding dominance versus Duncan, like, you can play with him for 15 years. Curry, like, they're not going to break this thing up because Draymond and Clay and them, like, they're going to figure it out because it doesn't get better than playing with Steph Curry.
It doesn't. And I do think that taking out the Warriors for the Lakers is something that I don't know that I had in the cards before this season started. Just in terms of who both of these teams were. That's post-punch in the Draymond world as well. I do think there's something about that that's still affecting this team. I think that both of these teams have gotten better as the playoffs have gone on, something that is often overlooked. People just assume that where you are or where you were 3 weeks ago is the same thing as where you are right now, not remotely. But game 3 is big. I think for Laker fans, getting 1-1 out of not Sacramento, out of Golden State, however it happened, was good enough.
Yeah, no, and it should be. The scary thing is now they need to win both in LA. You can't go 1-1 and then split 1-1. Otherwise, you're in deep trouble. Exactly. The longer the series goes, the more they're going to wear the Lakers down, and the better it is for Golden State. All right, last thing, slightly off topic, but also tangentially related to, like, the personality type thing we were just talking about. Milwaukee Bucks decided to fire Mike Budenholzer. Big, giant decision that they make, it was a week after they get eliminated by the Heat. There's the whole discourse about Giannis and failure and blah, 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 blah. And I just had this thought, and we'll talk about this, our guy Toby Altizer at the top of the hour, who used to work up in Milwaukee and works with us now. So I'm curious, like, kind of what the feel is more inside. But from the outside, Clinton, like, Bud came from San Antonio and was an assistant with Pop forever. And they built that thing around Pop and Duncan and then kind of the ancillary pieces that were fantastic. And in Manu and Tony Parker's cases, Hall of Famers. And if I'm Milwaukee, I would have tried to do the same thing, where Giannis is this incredibly unique human being who is the best player arguably on the planet. It's him or Curry, and they keep, kind of going back and forth. And is such a unique personality. And by the way, has this very unique background where he doesn't care that he's in Milwaukee, at least to this point. Like, it's not like he's an American kid who grew up dreaming about New York. Like, that wasn't on Giannis's radar. He seems to be perfectly happy in Milwaukee. And unless Giannis came to me and was like, hey, this ain't working anymore, I would have, and look, if that's what happened, that's a different story. But I would have tried to keep the continuity going as long as possible, knowing that we can win a title with him as the coach, because we already did. And I just think sports owners are way too impatient nowadays. He's a really good coach. I think it was a mistake, but I'm curious what you think about it, especially within the context of the conversation we just had.
I think this would qualify as something we used to describe as a 1990s movie with George Clooney on a boat called A Perfect Storm, where the situation regarding a little bit of the big britchedness of the Bucks has to do with this. The situation regarding the relationship with the star player probably has to do with this. And also, Bud's gone through a lot in his life recently.
Yes.
We know about the circumstance with his family, which is very unfortunate. When I first saw this news, because I do not keep abreast of NBA coaches' contract situations, I thought to myself, man, I really hope this is a mutual deciding of parting ways in a non-renewal. That would have felt a little bit more appropriate, just in terms of, hey, if the Bucks think they got to go a different direction and this guy's going through a lot, makes sense to just say, we're going to do something else right now. Go take care of yourself. But that's not what happened. And so that leads me to believe that there is a more extenuating circumstance. And as you said, if a once-in-a-generation player, a, let's just say, literal Greek god, comes by and there's any sort of, I don't even want to say friction, but there's any sort of thing that even if the ownership feels isn't working well together between them, whether or not Giannis thinks that or not, I can understand how you'd side with that guy and not the one guy that got you there at the top, even though it's been literally a lifetime, as in yours and mine's, since the Bucks were relevant at the top of the NBA conversation. I think it was a tough circumstance. I think that the timing, frankly, of Bud's family situation probably affected this in ways that were different than people realize. But that first round loss was tough. That can't happen on that list. You know what I mean? Well, it happened. And so, it's tough to say because when everybody thinks about the last time the Bucks won the title, who was the coach? Well, who knows when the next time is going to be? Everybody's going to remember Bud's name because, he did well in the face of a little bit of adversity. He was obviously there when they were in the bubble. So it's a tough go, but I understand it from a business standpoint, 100%.
Yeah. I also do wonder, and we'll talk to Toby about this, like they just got bought. And you know who bought them, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. One Jimmy Haslam, noted genius.
I know exactly who bought them. Yes.
Noted absolute, just unimpeachable wonder brain. As in, I wonder what the hell is going on inside that man's brain. Clayton Yates with us every Friday here on the Team 980. Talk to you next week, sir. Thank you.
Have a great weekend, Gregory.
All right, Toby's next. Gives us all the insight on Not My Beat. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hour 2, streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. Amy Dash, legal analyst, will join us to discuss the latest lawsuit in the NFL. They are getting sued or investigated by the states of New York and California, and because I'm very clearly unclear on the facts, Amy, an actual expert, will join us coming up at 5:30. Speaking of expertise, though, top story of the day, Bucks fire Mike Budenholzer. Let's get to Not My Beat.
Today's top story, from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
All right, we welcome in our guy, Toby Altizer. Toby, now with us at the Team 980 and 106.7 The Fan, but used to work in Milwaukee. And Toby, I learned today when I walked in here to our Odyssey Greenville, South Carolina studios and was talking with some of the big bosses here that you've apparently done some fill-in work here in the upstate.
I have done some work with the Fan upstate, so it's cool to see that you're down there enjoying the time down there. It's a nice area.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's where I grew up. Seeing my parents this weekend, good times. So that was literally the first question I was asked about, personnel was like, "Oh, do you know Toby Altizer?" I was like, "Yeah, he's on the show at 5 today." Not going to ask you any upstate questions. Are going to ask you Milwaukee questions. I'll just start with this. How surprised are you that Mike Budenholzer got fired after 2 consecutive years as the 1 seed in the East, a championship a couple years ago, but obviously that pretty devastating first-round exit?
Pretty simple answer. I was actually at the studio yesterday, and Linnell had saw the alert, and I didn't know quite yet. And he said, something big just happened. Guess what it is? It's something that you probably know a little bit about. And I was like, what? Is it something Packers related? Something Rodgers? Who knows? But he's like, yeah, Bud got fired. And I was like, that's not surprising at all to me. I know a lot of people nationally, I saw from you as well, some people that maybe weren't as plugged in with Milwaukee were quite surprised with the move. But people that know that team a little more intimately, I don't think are surprised at all to see the move made. It's not that it's anything disrespectful from Coach Bud. I think he's a good coach, but I think that this had been long coming. And honestly, he bought himself a couple of years winning that championship. If they hadn't won the championship in, 21, I think he would have been ousted that year. So, I mean, he bought himself a little more time, but a disappointing end of this year. And I'm not surprised, really, that this is the end of his tenure.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that definitely, and remember thinking at the time, like, man, is he it? Like, or is he just kind of a really great regular season coach who doesn't have the in-game adjustment, quick thinking, reacting type abilities that help you win playoff games and adjustment abilities that win playoff series? But he proved that he did. And I guess that's what I struggle with, Toby, is like, what changed where they don't think he can get them back to that level? And also, like, is this a kind of thing where, like, Giannis went to them? There's new ownership there. Like, there's a lot of factors here. So what is it that pushed it over the edge that now was the time he had to go?
Well, and I think we've seen consistently through his time there that, like you mentioned, he struggles making adjustments in the playoffs. And Craig, watching playoff basketball is totally different than the regular season in that he can just kind of run his system, run his stuff during the regular season. He's been relatively successful doing that. But when it gets to the playoffs, a couple things stand out. Number one, they go into game ones very casually, and they have throughout his entire time. I don't know if it's a thing where it's almost like showing up to take a test and you haven't studied, figure out what the material is, and then you adjust to it. And that's kind of what they do. But so many times they've come into game ones unprepared, and it really cost them this year. Obviously, Giannis goes down game one against the Heat, kind of changes things. But so many times they show up unprepared game one, and then he makes his adjustments going into game two. And you saw that this year. But for whatever reason, I think the nail in the coffin for this year was the fact that they couldn't adjust to finding a way to stop Jimmy Butler. And I don't know why Giannis decides that he doesn't have the authority to go talk to the coach about these things. But listening to his post-game presser, post-series presser, talking about, man, I wish I could have guarded Jimmy more. I think Giannis needs to understand that he is one of the faces of the league, one of the faces of that franchise, and needs to go tell Coach Bud that. But I think ultimately not being able to adjust in playoff series, especially this year with Jimmy Butler just propelling the Heat to the next round and ultimately knocking out the Bucks, I think that was the biggest issue, is just those playoff adjustments don't happen. in-game, game-to-game enough. So, again, not really a surprising move, but I think people that aren't as plugged in may be a bit surprised by it.
Yeah, definitely. Toby Altizer, our guy here at Team 980, 1067 The Fan, Odyssey DC, used to work in Milwaukee not that long ago, still super plugged in up there with us today for Not My Beat. The other thing that I kind of couldn't get out of my head is Bud came from San Antonio. I was just talking about this with Yates, right? Bud comes from San Antonio, where Pop was there forever. And, like, people need to remember, like, well, the Spurs won 5 championships. They also had a bunch of really devastating and kind of head-scratching losses where Pop didn't always do it right. He didn't always have great series, but they won 50 games every year. They were competitive, and they wound up winning multiple championships because, in part, they had the best player of their era in Tim Duncan, or one of the 2 best. And that's exactly what Milwaukee has right now with Giannis, certainly one of the best players, one of the 2 best, him and Curry, as LeBron finally reaches the end of his career, we think, maybe, that exists in the league. So, I guess what I'm ultimately getting to, Toby, is like, did they make the right decision here, even if all the stuff you're saying is true, that he didn't necessarily always adapt the best, didn't adjust the best? But is there a power to the continuity of keeping that group together, Middleton, Holiday, Antetokounmpo, and ultimately Bud at the head of it, that would have been worth it versus changing paths now after yet another near 60-win season, even if they lost to a Heat team that had no real business being an 8 seed?
I think it's a tough question to answer right now. If they don't find a coach that can maximize what they have, then the answer to that's going to be no. But if they can find a guy that can come in, build off of what Bud did, because I know a lot of people look at what Bud has done there, and especially in Milwaukee, just seeing people on Twitter, maybe they're not giving him enough credit for what he did do. They focus on his shortcomings, which we've already talked about. But what he did do is he brought in a system after Jason Kidd was let go that allowed Giannis to really flourish. Like, Giannis was starting to make that jump under Kidd. He made his first All-Star appearance the last year that Kidd was there, but he really took off as a superstar and MVP caliber player under Coach Bud, and it's because of the system that he ran, where basically you put a bunch of shooters around a guy that can run into the paint, creating more space for him. So I think that they can build off of this, and if someone can come in that's maybe a little better in the playoffs, maybe has a little bit more keen eye to be able to make those adjustments when it comes up in the playoff time, I think that they'll be okay. But to your point, like, they were one of the best teams in the NBA during his time in Milwaukee. He was continually winning 50, 60 games, one of the top teams, again, the top team this year in the NBA. So I think it's tough to say yes or no right now, depending upon who they bring in. I would say for now, yes, but if they don't bring in the right coach, then it's got to be a no.
Right. And it's like, okay, is it frustrating? Yes. Who's actually better? The one name that immediately jumps to mind is Nick Nurse. I don't know if there's any early candidate list that you've seen, but anybody in particular that you would like to see hired there?
I'm not sure. I know Charles Lee has been thrown around, an assistant there. The ideal candidate would have been Darvin Ham staying there. And obviously he's now coaching the Lakers. Worked out for him. Charles Lee, maybe he's been an assistant there for quite some time. Maybe he gets promoted. I know Nick Nurse is a name that gets thrown around a lot. I've seen mixed reaction on Twitter from Milwaukee folks. So I'm not exactly sure, but it's one of those things that if they can bring in someone that can build off of it. You mentioned Nick Nurse. We saw in Toronto, Dwayne Casey was coach of the year. They move on from him. Nick Nurse comes in. Obviously, Kawhi is a part of that as well, but they win the championship because sometimes you just reach that ceiling with a guy. They obviously won an NBA Finals with Coach Budenholzer, so their ceiling was pretty high with
good.
him.
Yeah.
But you wonder if maybe they've kind of reached a point where they need just a little bit of a change of opinion, and I think that's where they got with Coach Bud. If they can bring in the right guy, I think they can get back to that championship level, but the last 2 years have been kind of disappointing, and that's obviously resulted in Coach Bud moving on.
Toby Altizer with us here on the Hoffman Show, of course, now with us here in D.C., but previously in Milwaukee. So I'm sure Milwaukee hates ESPN right now because this morning Windhurst and Stephen A. and the Knicks, they're lurking for Giannis. Is Giannis wanting to leave? What's the actual real there? Like, is there any concern in Milwaukee that Giannis will leave? And actually, of course, there's going to be some concern because that's the nature of like smaller markets in NBA cities. it feels like they always leave eventually. But Giannis is a different dude. Do you think any of that worry is actually founded?
I think a lot of what happens this offseason will dictate how much they'll worry about it. I would say right now it's not a worry. I think Giannis is a very loyal guy. He was on CBS with one of their morning shows a couple months ago, and basically he said, as long as Milwaukee is going to have me, I want to be there. And so I think that's still going to be his attitude. Now, if things change and Chris Middleton doesn't come back and Brook Lopez doesn't come back and he's not a fan of the coach that comes in and they kind of go into maybe a soft rebuild just to kind of get back into that championship form, then maybe he would consider it. But I don't think there's really any consideration of Giannis leaving Milwaukee. But, I mean, you see guys that are plugged in. You mentioned ESPN. It seems like it always gets brought up with Giannis just because he isn't a small market. A guy like Damian Lillard gets brought up too in Portland. So maybe that's just kind of the nature of the beast with a small market basketball team. But I don't really put any stock into him actually considering leaving Milwaukee.
So that gets to kind of the rest of the stuff. What is, I haven't had a chance to look at it, where their contracts are, stuff like that. What is the state of the team now? Who is, about to be a free agent? How stable is the franchise over the next couple of years with how they're set up?
Yeah, Giannis is able to sign an extension, but he's still under contract for another 2 seasons. So even if he doesn't sign that extension, he's still there for at least a couple more years. Drew Holiday is under contract. The big ones are Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton has a player option, which I'm going to assume that he's going to opt out of. There's a lot of debate among Bucks fans whether he should be re-signed or not. Brook Lopez, another one. He's really turned himself into a really good player in that he can shoot the threes, but he's more valuable on the defensive end, being that stalwart in the middle that has turned into one of the best defensive big men in the league. It's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that, especially with the new rules that kind of penalize teams that are trying to keep their cores together. We're talking about it with the Warriors. It's the same way with the Bucks, with Middleton, Holiday, and Giannis. So those are the big ones with Middleton and Brook Lopez. And it's really tough with them because just because you move on from a guy like a Middleton or a Lopez with the NBA cap doesn't mean you can just go use that money on someone else. Like, they're already dealing with cap issues as is. So it's a kind of really, do they want to bring them back and pay that luxury tax bill, or do they not want to and try to find someone else? It's going to be interesting to see with those two specifically.
All right, last question. How much of this is ownership related? They just had a major sale. Jimmy Haslam, notoriously the owner of the Cleveland Browns, kind of a giant idiot, my words, not anybody else's, is now, he's the majority owner, right, of the team, or is it still Lazary?
Lazzary's the one selling, but there's the Edens family as well. I'm not exactly sure what the percentages are, but yeah,
he's got a huge stake in the team. We'll put it that way. How much of that, and by the way, when you talk about like things that could potentially upset a superstar, a bad owner, and for a guy like Giannis, that would scare the daylights out of me if I was a Bucks fan. Do you think any of this is ownership related, or is this like the basketball people making a basketball decision?
I don't think ownership's going to have too much to do with it. Maybe he has a little bit of say in what's going to happen, but I think for the most part, John Horst, the GM of the Bucks, is basically able to operate as usual. I don't think the Haslam thing is going to really upset the apple cart, but who knows? I mean, maybe, like you said, it comes in, upsets Giannis if he's not doing things correctly. I know a lot of Bucks fans were very disappointed to see that Haslam was taking Lazzary's stake, but I don't see a lot of huge change coming this offseason outside of obviously the coaching change, but who knows? I mean, if everything doesn't go right, maybe you do see a lot of change in Milwaukee.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Toby Altizer, you got a show this weekend? You got something coming up?
Yeah, coming up on Saturday, 6 to 7:40 over on 106.7 The Fan, and just leading up to the Nationals game over there, talking Commanders, kind of looking at Sam Howell and how confident people are in this franchise going into the year, and then talking about the Nationals, obviously.
DC Sports with Toby on 106.7 The Fan, 6 o'clock tomorrow. Appreciate you dipping back into your Milwaukee roots with us today on the Hoffman Show.
Absolutely. Always good to talk about a winning basketball team.
Hey, now, Toby. Do you want to be invited back or not? Jeez. All right. Speaking of the losers, we will talk about the Wizards. They actually made some moves today. We will discuss them next here on the Hoffman Show.
DC has a new home for your favorite songs from the 80s.
Tom Petty.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app. I'm Craig Hoffman. He is super producer Anthony Haney. You can also watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. So, Anthony, quick detour here before we get into the Wizards. Just a couple quick notes on the stuff they did today, and then we'll talk to Amy Dash coming up at 5:30. Amy, of course, a legal analyst who's been on the show before a bunch, talking about this investigation, lawsuit, something between the NFL and the states of New York and California. But, Anthony, as we mentioned a couple times today, I am doing this show from Greenville, South Carolina. I'm visiting my parents this weekend, and just because of the way travel is and flight schedules and all that kind of stuff, it was easier and better for me to come down this morning. A nice, smooth flight, thank God, and then do the show from our Odyssey station, our Odyssey group of stations here in Greenville. So I'm like in a back production studio, and the folks here have been awesome. But in the last commercial break, you were holding up your water and trying to trick me that it was vodka. I was like, no, that's definitely water. You're a responsible
Tequila,
human being.
baby.
I mean, that seems like more of a possibility for you. Nice tequila blanco. Anyway, point is, I had already been thinking about getting myself a bottle of water, and so I was like, I'll be right back. There's a vending machine right outside, and so I did indeed go get myself a bottle of water.
Okay.
It is definitely not the brand that was on the machine, and
I don't think I've seen that before.
it's Cumberland Gap, which I wonder, is this like a bottle? It's a Coca-Cola company, Middlesboro, Kentucky.
Yes, sir.
I don't know where this, I'm guessing that's where this water comes from. Anyway, Anthony, here's the thing. Here's my question. Well, two things. One, I immediately was like, I wonder when the last time this vending machine was touched. Cash only.
Cash only.
Yeah, there's no credit card tap. Most vending machines now not only let you insert a card, but like you can Apple Pay on them.
Yeah.
Right?
Gotta get some new readers, I guess, down there.
Yeah, this one was cash only. And I don't think water expires, but it does say April 25th, 2023 on the bottle. I'm like, should I drink this? Did I just waste $1.70? Luckily, I had cash. But do I drink it?
There's only one way to find out if it's expired.
No. It's the wrong answer. Because, like, to me, it's like, obviously the water itself is not going to expire. My concern is, like, is there something that deteriorates in the plastic that then infects the water?
Oh, you're trying to check out the purity of it.
Yeah, like, I mean, and look, it's, what are we, May 5th? Oh, yeah, it's Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. This is April 25th.
All right, so I have a water bottle right here.
And what does it expire? Probably like 2027?
It expires October 14th, 2024. So about a year and some change from now. So it's safe to say that bottle right there
Has been here a while.
has been there since, that's 23. So 21, like November or December of 2021.
I'm like,
That's
is this like a pre-COVID bottle of water that I just got out of this vending machine?
Dang. I think you should try it, to be honest. There you go.
All right, let's
All right, he's taking the cap off. He's smelling it like it's
actually,
wine or something.
There's a little bit of an odor.
Oh, there's an odor to it.
Tastes
it
like pretty
quenches thirst.
tastes like pretty mediocre spring water.
All right.
Oh, it's
So it's
definitely a
worth
little plasticky.
Oh man.
I don't like that. That's
So you're not gonna
unfortunate.
finish it.
I don't think so. I'm gonna probably find a water fountain. It's got to
A
be a
water
kitchen.
fountain.
There's got to be a kitchen. There's got to be like a kitchen with a cup. Yeah, it's. I've never seen water that's so old that it expired.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. I seriously wonder if that water bottle has been in there. Because also, like, I'm down in a production. I don't know the last time before today this studio was used. I'm sure it has been. Like, they've got 7 radio stations here.
Yeah.
That's the same number we have. Like, there's people in production studios all over the place. But, like, ours are kind of centrally located. And we have, like, a kitchen area. This is an old school vending machine. I don't even know why it's here. There's no way they're making money off of it. I did kind of find or get a chuckle out of the fact that there was a sign on it that's like money taken out of this vending machine daily. Like, don't try to rob it. There's nothing in here. Like, you could take it out once a year, and I don't think that you're missing out a lot.
I think you need to inquire with the people that work down there about when's the last time someone did a inventory job on this vending machine.
Yeah, what's the latest delivery? By the way, did you know that there's people that like print money on vending machines?
No,
It's like
I did not.
Like if you can buy a vending, I can't remember where I saw this, but I saw like a news story that there's like if you can buy a vending machine and you can get it placed in like a pretty high traffic area, like it is a hell of a business.
Yeah, my friend has a couple vending machines. He has like 9 actually. I shouldn't say a couple. He has 9.
He probably is making like way more than we do on his vending machines, and he doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. He doesn't hire workers to do it. Like he manually goes to every location, which is a little tedious. And he asks me to help him sometimes, and I charge him.
I was about to say, are you making money off that deal?
A little bit, but nothing that's going to be life changing.
You should make enough to buy one of the machines. You buy the one that's closest to your house.
Oh, I mean, I could just buy a machine, but it's hard to find locations. I think that's the hard part.
How much?
About machines.
Someone who's got some information on this, tweet me at Craig Hoffman.
Oh, you need a vending machine?
How much would it take for Anthony and I to buy a vending machine?
Do you want a crappy one that only takes cash only, or do you want one that has?
No, we gotta be able to take credit cards.
So it's probably gonna run us roughly about $1,000.
Oh, we could do that.
1,000, 1,200, like
That
those are like.
there's
the
no way
solid
that
ones.
can't pay for itself pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Dude, we gotta buy a vending machine. Can we also get it custom made, like as a Hoffman show? Listen to the Hoffman show 4 to 7 weekdays on the Team 980, like on the vending machine.
Yeah, you can get that on there too.
Anthony,
But it's about the location though. Like,
okay,
it is
we can
hard to find
figure that out.
Okay, it's easier said than done. It's easier said than done. Finally,
It sounds like it's worth it. Anthony, I think we're going to buy a vending machine.
All right,
We'll
there
talk
it
about
is.
the Wizard stuff later. Anthony and I have business to do, and Amy Dash is going to join us next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. Joining us now, she's the founder of the site League of Justice, legal analyst Amy Dash is back with us on the show. Amy, long time no talk. How you been?
I'm doing great, Craig. How are you?
I am doing well. In a way, it's a good thing that we haven't had to have you on, because typically we have legal analysts on when people are getting sued and in trouble. And for once, it's not actually the Commanders. It's just the NFL. Can you fill us in on this? I don't know whether it's already at the point of lawsuit, is investigation. What is happening between the state of California, the state of New York, and their attorneys general, and the National Football League?
Sure. Well, those attorney generals have decided to open an investigation to explore whether they can bring lawsuits against the NFL under federal and state laws for employment discrimination. And this has to do with protected classes of people. So that means you cannot be discriminated in the workplace based on your gender, your race, your sexual orientation. There's a whole list, your age, there's a whole list of these protected categories. And at this point, there is enough evidence and there are enough active lawsuits and allegations for them to say, okay, we believe that the NFL may be fostering a hostile workplace where people are being discriminated against based on their race and based on their gender, and where there's potentially been active sexual harassment that has been cultivated by this culture that the league is propagating.
So when, like, New York is where the league office is. Obviously, the NFL Network is in Los Angeles. There, or is it about potentially, like, for instance, things that happened at the Washington Commanders and some of the franchises within the league? Like, is this just league office? Is this teams? Is it all of it encompassed in a larger case about the NFL?
That's a great question. So there is not a focus on individual teams. Its focus is on the league itself. At this point, there's enough that has been handed over to these attorney generals. If you'll remember, the allegations by more than 30 employees against the Commanders, that reached Congress. Congress did its own investigation. It then handed that information that it gathered over to these attorney generals and said, we want you to see if any of this evidence, any of these allegations and testimony can be used to build a case against the NFL as a participant in all of this. So while they're not focused on the Commanders, that was sort of the catalyst for these attorney generals to say, okay, not only do we have 30 employees from the Commanders, but we also have a recent woman who worked at the top ranks of NFL media, who rose to be a vice president, who was recently let go and filed an age and gender discrimination case back in March 2022. We have the Brian Flores lawsuit, which alleges, widespread discrimination in hiring in terms of race. Jim Trotter, NFL media, he ended up confronting Roger Goodell about league hiring practices on national television. And at that point, he alleges that he wasn't treated so nicely. And, I think something might be brewing in terms of him as well. So there's so many people at this point who are willing to come forward. And what happened after the congressional inquiry is that 6 attorney generals issued a letter to the NFL saying, we believe that your workplace as a whole has problems, including your front offices in New York and in Los Angeles. They have multiple locations, headquarters, I believe they're also in New Jersey. And they also invited a lot of the people that were making allegations against teams to file complaints with their individual attorney general offices. And what that did is it then gave them the impetus to say, complaints have been filed by people. We have amassed a whole variety of these different complaints that give us the cause to go and investigate the league as a whole.
Amy Dash, legal analyst, League of Justice, with us here on the Team 980. I remember talking to someone a couple months ago and talking about, like, the Mary Jo White report for the Commanders, for instance, and they're like, yeah, like, obviously that's important, but the one the NFL is really scared of is the Flores lawsuit. Where does this fall in terms of real threats to the NFL? Like, what kind of threat is this to the NFL?
The Flores lawsuit or this one right now that's investigating the NFL as a whole for workplace discrimination and hostile sexual harassment?
This one, which, as you said, kind of encompasses some of the similar themes.
Yeah. So I think what type of a risk this poses, obviously, it doesn't look good from a PR perspective. This is not a criminal case. A lot of this may be handled administratively by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. It depends if any of the claims are brought under federal law, which prohibit discrimination under the Civil Rights Act, or whether they're brought under state laws. But essentially, it could be either administrative or it could result in some sort of a civil suit. And some of the remedies really depend on what kind of laws are invoked, but they could be anything from, forcing the NFL to stop certain behavior, forcing them to rehire certain people, to pay back wages if there's been discrimination in terms of gender, in terms of like people, some of the allegations were that men were hired and promoted over women who were equally as qualified or potentially paid more. So getting back pay, getting reinstated, there could be a forced change in behavior and policies. And really, like, the bottom line is that Letitia James and a lot of these attorney generals have a track record of making people pay a lot of money to give restitution to people that they've proven have been wronged in these situations. So as long as they can prove that and there's genuine discrimination of a protected class or genuine harassment of a protected class, people could stand to make a lot of money, and potentially the NFL may be forced to change its behavior and policies. Because the key thing here is that they're looking for patterns and practices. So that is why they're doing this now. There have been enough lawsuits, enough people coming forward that they have a good shot at proving patterns and practices of unwelcome behavior in the workplace.
So the NFL's response then becomes really interesting. They said they don't explicitly deny the allegations in at least the part of their response that I read in the Washington Post yesterday, but they said we have made a huge effort in these areas. We have policies and practices in place that not only achieve these by the legal standard, but of higher standards, of a moral standard, and kind of best in class, if you will. So what do you make of the NFL's response where they say, no, we are trying here? Is it possible that they could get away with it, so to speak, if they're trying and just haven't succeeded fully? Does it come down to the execution? How does kind of the desires versus the execution all come out in this? Or is the NFL just trying to cover their own tails and they're actually full of it?
It really I don't know their motivation. I don't know, what they're actually enforcing, but I think the execution is key here rather than the formality or the facade. So 37% of women who work for the league in the front offices, 37% are women, 37% are people of color. So, of course, they have policies that they put in place. There's a lot of rhetoric, by the way, after what happened with Ray Rice. That was a long time ago when he punched his fiance. And at that point, the NFL had to come forward and take a stand against domestic violence. And people have called them out for being hypocritical in terms of punishing people who have committed domestic violence since then. But generally, I would say the feeling from people that are filing these complaints, at least, people that are initiating these lawsuits, and people that are testifying before Congress, is that these policies are smoke and mirrors, that this is not anything that is enforced, and in fact, in practice, and that's what really matters here, there's a pattern of abusive behavior and a boys' club that goes on within the league offices. And this was even mentioned during the congressional hearing by somebody who said they believe that, the league here is responsible. There have been lawsuits, multiple lawsuits, where the league itself has been attached as a party, including, allegations of collusion in terms of the commander's report and not releasing that information, not being transparent about the findings of the initial investigation. So I think really right now, it all is going to come down to what can be proven. And don't forget, testimony is a lot of times considered to be proof as long as the person is not deemed to be uncredible.
Amy Dash, legal analyst, founder of the site League of Justice, with us for a few more here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Critics of these suits would probably immediately say, well, these are two DAs that are trying to score political points. Isn't there something better to do? Why are these important lawsuits to bring and for, the state of New York, for the state of California? And do you agree that they are important to bring?
I agree they're important to bring because, like I said, there are enough people who have come forward with this pattern of allegations. Is there a dog and pony show element to it? Yes, there always is, because a lot of these attorney generals, have political aspirations, and they've gotten to that role by doing high-profile things against high-profile corporations and individuals. So, sure, is the NFL a great target? Yeah, they can get a lot of money from the NFL for the people that they feel are wronged, as long as they can win the cases. But I also think that with the tens of thousands of documents that Congress was able to compile and the number of witnesses willing to file complaints and come forward, there's absolutely cause here for them to pursue some sort of an investigation against a high-profile corporation that really does set the tone for what's acceptable a lot of times in America in the workplace because of the NFL's large influence.
Yeah, definitely. I did a longer piece on this yesterday, Amy, and I tried to ask that question without leading the witness, so to speak, to use a terrible legal pun. But I think I did. But you're going to have attorneys general sue gigantic or investigate gigantic organizations, corporations. Just because it's one that you like the product doesn't mean it's any less valid. And like you said, they still have to win the case. And if this makes a larger point about, hey, Amazon, you better behave because you could be next, or Microsoft, or small business, or whoever, okay, the NFL happens to be the example, but if there's no there's no case in the first place. So, you can't, there's only so much that can be called political grandstanding if there's actual merit to the case.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Now, do they like to pull the tricks where they make the announcement at the podium with the big blown up cardboard with the diagrams, and they just so happen to make the announcement days before the NFL is going to release its schedule? Yes, they love to do that in terms of timing, to sort of get the publicity towards their office rather than the NFL. And of course, it's going to make headlines. But listen, this is a long process. This is just the very beginning of it. These investigations could go on for years, and there might be large swaths, large areas of time that we don't hear anything about what's going on, and that doesn't mean people aren't hard at work. So I think this has been a long time coming, especially when the Attorney General sent that letter, and to give, the NFL the benefit of the doubt, they even said, listen, they sent us this letter, 6 Attorney Generals asking for cooperation. We haven't heard anything from them since. We were willing to cooperate, and now all of a sudden they're announcing lawsuits. So are some steps being skipped here? Is there a lack of cooperation in terms of just trying to pressure and humiliate the NFL? Yeah, I think that's part of it too, because at the end of the day, if the NFL is willing to come to the table and provide back pay or restitution or change policies, that is always easier than having to go through the whole litigation process. It's easier for both sides. So there's always going to be this public, media effort to try to bring people to the table so that they can get the easiest resolution possible.
Anything else that comes out here, or is this something that you're trying to fight to say, no, we've been doing this, we're better than this, or would you just be like, all right, how much money do we owe, and let's get this off the books?
Well, I think they probably love to do that, but of course they have to, keep up the PR aspect of things. So I think initially they have to deny everything, which they usually do, and fight it. We're going to fight it, and then what happens is everybody gets, because also don't forget there's a strategy here. So if you just come to the table and you're like, yeah, we'll give you whatever you want, right? Then you've given all the leverage to the other side, and they're going to ask for a lot, and then they know they've got you. So I think both sides sort of play it. They end up going down the process and going through all of the documents, and then at a certain point, people's true cards start to show. So, for example, if the attorney generals have some really damning information and the NFL feels that it really can't fight it, or that if it gets out, it's going to reflect poorly on them, or that it's a smoking gun, then maybe they would be more likely to sit down and say, okay, how much do you want? How can we get this resolved? But I think nobody wants to hand over the type of money that they're probably going to want to ask for something like this, and it all also has to be measured as to, which claims actually have validity and who's just trying to jump on the bandwagon because they were fired and they're unhappy about it and they've got an axe to grind. I would say the one thing the NFL has to be really careful about is any type of appearance of retaliation for the people that have filed complaints, because that's another step of unlawfulness that could get them into even deeper trouble here.
Yeah, definitely. Amy Dash, you can read more about this on her site, League of Justice. Amy, it's always great to have you. Thanks so much for your time, and have a great weekend.
Likewise, you too. Thanks so much.
All right, Amy Dash with us, everybody. When we get back, we will get back to the Wizards stuff that I promised before Anthony and I decided that we were going to buy a vending machine. But first, let's tell you what's trending.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
In case you missed it last night, Bucks fire head coach Mike Budenholzer. We talked about it with our guy Toby Altizer at the top of the hour. This comes after being the number 1 seed 2 straight seasons, first ever time that has happened. Bud out in Milwaukee. Tonight in the NBA, Boston and Philly. That series tied at 1 as it goes to Philadelphia. Denver-Phoenix tonight is the late game. 2-0 Denver in that series can certainly put a huge dent in the Suns' plans to bring in Kevin Durant and win a title with a victory tonight to go up 3-0. Nationals on the West Coast tonight. They're in Arizona. Nats, by the way, super hot as of late. Won a bunch of games against the Cubs earlier this week. They're just 5 games under 500 on the season. 9:40 first pitch, 9:10 pregame over on 106.7 The Fan. That's what's trending. I'm Craig Hoffman on the Team 980. the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app. Wizards make a couple of coaching moves. I had heard that these were coming. At least one of them was coming. Ava Wallace, the first that I saw to report this today. Josh Robbins in The Athletic had it as well. But they move on from Alex McLean and one other coach whose name I cannot believe I'm forgetting. He was one of the first like real big analytics guys in hoops and is kind of a legend in that area. But Alex McLean is the one that I'm going to focus on a little bit here. Alex was the head of player development basically for the team. And I was talking with someone recently in the league, and they said I would have my lead player development coach be my third highest guy on staff in terms of pay. That's how important that position is. They set the tone for how players develop in a season in conjunction with the head coach, and then the second guy is your lead assistant, the guy who's second on the bench. And that to me says a lot because there's a lot of NBA coaches now. Like staffs have what feels like 700 dudes on them. And I think that when you look at what the Wizards have done over the last couple of years in terms of the draft, it's not possible that they've just missed every time on scouting. Like they've got some guys that show some flashes, right? They've drafted good players and they've been in the top 10 consistently. Have they certainly missed on like the Tyrese Halliburtons of the world and many other players? Sure. But how come some of these players leave, go other places, and they're able to find better roles and be better players than they are here? Now, I'm not even talking about Rui Hachimura, although if he continues to be the guy he's been in the playoffs, then that one's going to just be another addition onto the list. I'm not convinced that this is who Rui is, a guy who's going to score like 18 points every playoff game, whose confidence right now is through the roof, who's playing extremely well. And by the way, good for Rui. I'm not trying to tear Rui down. I'm not trying to be negative. I just am going to need to see more consistency from a guy whose problem has been consistency. But that's kind of the point, is you need someone in that player development role who not only grows guys in terms of their skills, but grows their confidence and grows their ability to produce consistently and is working in conjunction with the staff to make sure that that is happening within the roles and the skill sets that the team needs to build a cohesive unit. Now, again, do I think Tommy's did a bad job drafting and it's the number one reason why he's gone? Hell yeah, I do. They had very poor roster construction. They never found the right point guard to go with Brad after John left. They drafted extremely similar positional guys in Denny and Rui and then traded for Kuzma. Like, it's just too many guys and not enough minutes, and not just not enough minutes, not enough space on the floor, not enough shots to go around, not enough complementary skill sets. If you got 3 6'10" guys, can they all play together? Yeah, it's 2023 in the NBA. If they're all, well, at least Kuz and Rui, are predominantly offensive players who operate in many of the same areas, and then Denny, who is not exactly a stellar spot-up shooter. Probably his best offensive attributes are him being on the ball when there's not a lot of on-the-ball time to go around. And he's being asked to do far more defensively than he's capable of. Like, that's a bad roster construction. But could it have been better if the players were developed better? Is there something that could have happened with Johnny Davis far earlier in the season where he could have contributed a lot more this year at the NBA level? Certainly that's what I think is happening here. And I think part of that is why, or not part of that, but that is why ultimately they make that change. But I think something, a couple weeks you'll be like, oh, Craig said that on the radio back on Cinco de Mayo. It's the only thing you remember from tonight. That's true for some of you. Anyway, I think they're going to probably look to their G League unit and potentially take some of the coaches there and bring them up. You saw what they did with Johnny Davis. You saw what they did with Chris Dunn, who ultimately wound up signing elsewhere in the league. You saw some of these guys later in the season come up. And one, the Go-Go were really successful winning basketball games this year, which is kind of secondary to the point in the G League in terms of an affiliate type of program. You're really trying to get your guys better. But they had a bunch of players take big, giant leaps as basketball players and show that they could contribute meaningful NBA minutes when the Wizards finally sat guys at the end of the year. Like, they were competitive in a lot of games that they had no business being competitive in. They just didn't have enough juice because they were asking those guys to play like monster roles instead of being the 8th or 9th guy, which is what they're really suited for, but they weren't at the beginning of the season. And I think it's actually a sign of a healthy organization in some aspects, right? Clearly, like, this organization's got a lot of issues and will continue to refine itself, hopefully, in a very meaningful way over the next couple of weeks and months in order to be competitive next year, or at the very least, set themselves up to be uber competitive. I'd actually prefer that, set themselves up to be uber competitive in the future by stripping it down and starting over. But in terms of the front office personnel, they have now almost completely, if not with today's moves, completely removed people from the Grunfeld era. And that included Tommy, by the way. And I actually think some of the other people that work in that organization are pretty freaking smart. I actually think they know what they're doing. And now they're going to get a chance to shine and be powerful as long as Ted empowers them to do so. If all you do is force them to do the same job you forced the last guys to do because you're tied to certain ideas, this organization is not going anywhere. If Ted lets them cook, I actually think what they're putting out on the table could, in a couple of years, be pretty appetizing. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, winning basketball, playoff basketball. How did the Warriors do it last night? Anthony and I dive in next.
The Team 980 is always live on the free...
the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Final hour here on a Friday. Anthony, I feel like it's been a good show today. It just feels long.
You think it's long?
Yeah, maybe it's because I'm in this different room and I'm like literally by myself. I just haven't had human interaction in like 4.5 hours outside of the radio show.
Yeah.
But it just feels very like it's a white room. It's nice. It's just very sterile.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to like the usual shenanigans of our station where who knows who, like people are running around, all of a sudden I'll be in the middle of a segment and Danny will appear outside the studio because they're in break and he's trying to make a 70-foot putt down the hallway.
I just think you need to, walk around, like do a lap outside of the studio. I know you did run to the vending machine, but.
Yeah, but the vending machine's literally 4 feet outside that door.
Oh, dang.
So I haven't gotten very far.
Maybe do some like high knees, some jumping jacks in between breaks.
Maybe. I kind of want to stand up for this segment, maybe.
Oh, there it is.
I gotta. Well, if we're gonna do that for the YouTube, we're gonna have to angle the camera up. My legs feel a little tired. But what if I just did the show like this? McAfee does it.
Leaning? Oh yeah, he does.
Sometimes he stands on his chair. I feel like that's a high risk
that's
proposition.
Over the top right there.
Yeah, I don't need to be that. Also, I'm now very crooked. Let's jingle this way. All right. I don't think that actually fixed anything. So the Warriors last night. You know what they did, Anthony?
They did what we already predicted, though, Craig.
They fixed stuff. That was the line I was going to use that you just stepped all over.
Okay.
Yeah. They fixed stuff. But it's exactly. I wouldn't say it's exactly as we predicted. I didn't think that the Warriors would win by 27. And I'm not going to lie, man. When I heard Kevon Looney was out pregame, I got real nervous about that Warriors prediction. But it was just kind of, I don't know, deep inside you go, this series is not going 2-0. They're not losing 2 games at home. No way. Not unless something happens to one of their big guys. And, well, something did happen to one of their big guys, and it was Klay Thompson. He became a superhuman. When Klay plays like that, they're, I don't want to say impossible to beat, but it's damn hard. And I think it's important to point out, though, like, what Curry did last night was remarkable. 12 assists in basically 3 quarters. They play that thing out, who knows, 15, 16 assists. I mean, the way he manipulated the Lakers defense was phenomenal. And just the reason I have been on board with this Warriors team since literally 2015. There was like some advanced stat stuff in 2015 when they were getting started. I was like, I think this team's going to be like legendarily good. You see that they've got plus 10 point differential. They're doing stuff that like checks all the boxes of historical precedence of they're going to be a champion. And I'll give credit to the guy who kind of tipped me off to it first, Ryan Russillo, who was at ESPN Radio at the time, on his show with Van Pelt. They had this saying where Ryan just said, print the shirts. Basically like, hey, it's December. The Warriors are going to win the championship. Print the shirts. And sure enough, he was right. And there was just like things about that team that stood out like a sore thumb if you knew what to look for. But the thing that really has always attracted me to them is the intelligence they play with. And part of this is Kerr being one of the best, if not the best coach in the league in terms of tactics and ability to make minor adjustments. Part of it is Draymond's brilliance. Part of it is Curry's brilliance. Clay's a really smart player. Iguodala's been around forever. I think it's super interesting that even though he's hurt, like who does Steph sit next to on the bench? Who's up off the bench, kind of being an extra assistant is Iguodala, one of the smartest players of the last 20 years in the entire league. And the way they can adapt is what wins playoff games, a playoff series. It's not just can you make an adjustment, right? It's how quickly can you make an adjustment. And watching them adjust to Lakers adjustments basically instantaneously last night was incredible. And so to get like into the X's and O's, like the Lakers did what's called top locking some of these screens, right? So instead of, as Curry's running around, instead of trying to dive under and then I'll meet you on the other side with a good high contest, it's like I'm going to stay on top of you and make you cut to the basket. Instead of being between, like all of our youth coaches ever said, it's like, hey, you ball man or you man ball, whatever it was. Like basically, you better be between the ball and the basket. I clearly didn't pay attention that much. I just was like, hey, I'm going to stay between my guy and the basket. You and your fancy phrase can eat it. But it's like, no, we're gonna force you to the basket and trust that Anthony Davis is gonna be back there and clean up our mess. And what the Warriors did was, and they did this like a couple of times. Like I don't think I've ever seen it on an NBA court before. Whereas like they kind of use that top block and then get a pass right in front of them, but instead of driving, they would just walk into a pull-up jumper. And they're willing to take long twos, but because it's Steph Curry, because it's Klay Thompson, and Klay had a couple where he did that and then was able to sidestep into a three, like it just destroyed what the Lakers were trying to do, and they had no answer. And I think that's kind of the point. Like, if you can make the Warriors take long twos and tough threes, there are still some nights you're just going to lose. And that's what happened to the Lakers last night. Combine it with the fact that they couldn't hit anything on the offensive end, and they just lose by 27. And to me, that's the story of the game.
Yeah, and I think you say the Warriors adjusted well, or they fixed things. We saw this sort of kind of at the end of game one.
Yep.
Where, the Warriors put the ball in Steph Curry's hands, and since he draws like just so much attention, like teams don't want Steph Curry to beat. They want everybody else to beat them. Steph Curry just, he played a hell of a game just being able to facilitate. He know he's going to draw the trap, so he just dished to whoever's rolling to the basket. And also they found, three-point shooters, and they continue just to, make those shots. Again, another game where they hit 20 three-pointers in a game. It's going to be hard to beat a team when they're out there making 20 three-pointers in a game and shooting it efficiently. They shot 50% from three. So I think, being able to, hit the threes, and also the Lakers' inability just to, get to the free throw lines. I think they just got away from everything that worked well in game one, and they didn't do it in game two. The free throw lines, the applying pressure to Steph Curry, denying him, and things of that nature. They just got away from everything. And Anthony Davis also was nowhere to be found. Need a better game out of him.
Yeah, offensively, Davis did not have a good one. I think, defending without fouling obviously is a huge deal. And they showed the graphic at the beginning of game 2 last night where it's like the Warriors were, I want to say it was like 15 of 26 or something like that from 3 in game 1. They were awesome. And they still lost because they gave up 29 free throws and only shot 6, the fewest in franchise history. And to see them make that switch of defending without fouling and execute that against the team that is as good at drawing fouls as anyone in the league is incredibly impressive. Now, we all know referees are human. There's going to be a switch in game 3. One, I'm sure the Lakers are going to complain about it to the league and say, oh, here's all the calls they missed, and the referees will be shown that because that's part of the process. Be on the lookout for these things. And also the game's at Crypto.com Arena. It's in LA. I almost called it Staples. It's at home for the Lakers, and that tends to, influence referees because, again, they're human beings, get caught up in the emotion of the game, even though these are the best of the best and are generally immune to that as much as anyone possibly can be. Also, the law of averages. Like, they're probably going to shoot a lot of free throws because they did in last game, and they're the best in the league at it. But that's not going to be enough to overcome 27 points. Like there's got to be significantly better defense. And I think like a change in strategy. I've been trying to rack my brain. Like if I'm Darvin Ham, what do I do with them? Curry being on the ball was the thing that changed the series, right? And it started at the end of game 1, like you said. They went on that 14-0 run, and then they blitz Curry on the last possession. He's got to give it up. Draymond gets it, swings it to Jordan Poole. He fires from forever, misses. Everyone's then mad at Jordan Poole. So if I'm them, I'm probably just blitzing Curry to get the ball out of his hands. I'm trying to trap him. I'm trying to get the ball out of his hands. And then you play this dangerous game of can you cover the 4-on-3s? We all know Steph is the best, especially in that pick and roll with Draymond, of getting the ball out early and letting Draymond go downhill 4-on-3. And if I'm the Lakers, I'm just covering that in a way that I'm going to give JaMychal Green more open threes. And just say, man, if JaMychal Green's going to beat us, then gosh darn it, we're going to lose. I'm not letting Thompson get open looks because clearly that's a bad idea. I'm not letting Curry beat me directly. And I'm going to make Draymond make 50 decisions instead of Curry make 50 decisions, because even though I don't want Draymond making 50 decisions if I can help it, because he's going to be right 47 times, I still would prefer that than Curry, who's going to be right 40, maybe also 47, but part of his decisions that are correct are him shooting threes. And Draymond, I thought Draymond was awesome last night, by the way, and he did something that I mentioned on the show, right? He takes the ball and is aggressive to score, and there's times where, like, you can see the Lakers starting to play the pass and, like, prematurely rotate, and Draymond's like, well, I'm just going to keep going. Boom, dunk. And if he can do that, then, like, again, I just don't know what you do if you're the Lakers. You probably have to mix it up a little bit. You have to massively win the minutes where Curry's off the floor, but I just don't know if they have the horses to do it. Certainly, over, what do they need? 3 of the next 5. I don't know if they have horses to do it either one of the next 2 games at home, which they have to really win both if they want to win this series.
Yeah, and I was also trying to think about what the Lakers can do, but it's really going to be tough just because if you're blitzing Steph Curry continuously, I think he's going to beat you that way. I'm simply saying the Lakers just got to man up and they got to play defense. I think you switch, the pick and rolls, and you just do your best and see what comes of that. They have some solid defenders on their team. But as far as like blitz, I just don't think that response has like gone well for them over the last 2 games.
I know this sounds crazy because they're the Warriors, and as 2 proud Syracuse alums, what's the worst thing that you can do against a good shooting team? Is play zone. I'd seriously consider it if I was the Lakers. I would push that zone out and be like, look, I know y'all are you, and if you're going to hit 30-footers, we're going to lose anyway. I'm going to try to force you. Because what that does is it prevents them pulling Davis away from the basket.
Mm-hmm.
If you can keep AD in the paint where they can't choose their matchups, and you can still mostly have Vanderbilt on Curry and Schroeder on Curry on the outside when he's in the areas that he likes to operate from, and I can maybe force Draymond into a bunch of free throw line jumpers. Would it work a lot? No, because I think eventually, like, Curry would just have, like, you take Curry off the ball some, you'd float him into space, you'd have Clay cutting to the free throw line, catch, shoot, a bunch of twos, long twos, which he's going to shoot at a super high percentage. Like, there aren't a lot of great answers, but I guess that's kind of the thing is, like, if you're LA, you got to pick your poison, and I'd rather die with AD involved at the rim, doing the things he does best, super cleaning up the glass, etc., and being super involved on the defensive end and trying to get him in a rhythm offensively, than I would him being dragged out in screen and rolls 35 feet from the basket, and then Draymond going downhill uncontested against lesser defenders. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's tough. It's a really, really tough job if you're Darvin Ham. Because at the end of the day, like, what are we dealing with here? The Warriors are better. And sometimes the better team is going to win. I'm not saying it's 100% guaranteed because LeBron and AD are capable of going nuts. And AD defensively can wipe out a lot of sins. But I think last night was – I'm not saying it's going to be 20-point games from here on out by any stretch. I'm not even saying the Lakers are toast and they're losing this in 5. But I do think, like, last night exposed some serious problems for the Lakers. And I can't rack my mind for the adjustment. But then again, I'm not an NBA head coach.
Offensively, though, would you like to see AD and LeBron both on the block?
Yes.
I just don't think we've seen – well, in Game 2, we didn't see enough of that. Game 1, AD was all about, being in the paint, being aggressive, dominating. But Game 2 is on the perimeter too much. Like, LeBron, he did go down to the post a little bit, and when he did, it was very effective. So I'm thinking, utilize that size. And when they go small, you can also go small with LeBron at the 5 possibly. But you also got to be able to score when Anthony Davis is off the court. If he's off the court and they're going small, go with LeBron at the 5
and that to me, like, that's the issue, right? You're not going to win, or rarely. I won't say you won't ever, but you're probably not winning the minutes when Curry's on the floor, right?
Yeah.
So he's gonna play. I mean, last night he only had to play 30, if that, because they didn't play the 4th. But it's funny. The Athletic does a newsletter every day that I get called The Pulse, and whoever wrote it was like, if you played on an Olympic team, you didn't play in the 4th quarter last night. But, like, if he's going to play 38 minutes, that gives you 10 minutes to smoke the Warriors and win the game. You have to keep it close in the Curry minutes. So let's say it's, the Warriors win those by 4 points. That's a win for the Lakers. You just got to win the remaining 10 minutes by 5. But if a lot of Curry's bench minutes coincide with Davis's bench minutes and LeBron's bench minutes, then who's scoring? Like Rui's, and the thing is, they've had a guy in Rui who's done a really exceptional job. But where else can they get it from? Can Schroeder get to the free throw line like he did in game 1 where he had 10 free throw attempts? Can Vanderbilt knock down shots? Can some of these other guys, do they put Beasley back in the rotation, get him to knock down some shots? Like, they've got to find other scores. Reeves has to be like an 18 to 20 point scorer. And I just think over the course of a series against this team defensively with the discipline, the length, the athleticism that the Warriors have, and by the way, how efficient they are offensively, because that's another thing people don't realize. Like, part of the reason why the Warriors are so great defensively is because they get to defend after made baskets a lot. When you're a bad shooting team, you're stuck in transition all the time, and you're going to get murdered, and your defensive stats are going to look like garbage, even if you're maybe a good half-court defensive team. The Warriors make baskets, they get back on defense, and the Lakers aren't looking to run, meaning they have to set, which, by the way, is the correct call. I actually thought that was a mistake. There was a bit of a cell-phone last night. Early in that game, D'Angelo Russell was like, push and pace, push and pace, push and pace. And it's like, for what, man? Where are you going? And I just think, like, if I'm the Lakers, I'm trying to muck this game up, slow it down, and it's ultimately, like, we talk a lot about Davis, but it's on LeBron if they're going to win. Like, when I say it's on LeBron, I don't mean like if he fails, his legacy, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not doing hot take garbage, right? But, like, realistically, within the context of if they want to win this series, LeBron has for years been able to do exactly what they need to do and play this chess match and get the matchups and get the ball exactly where he wants it against the guy that he wants and win the matchup and just thoroughly single-handedly dominate the game. If he can do that, they can win. I just don't know that's in him anymore, especially against this team that has some guys that can do a decent enough job on him,
and it's
namely Draymond Green.
It's funny you say that because Draymond, on his podcast after they lost game 1, he was saying how the team looked different. You know, the ball isn't in LeBron James' hand as much, and it was, taking them some time to adjust to, him playing off the ball. So maybe the right recipe is for LeBron James to go back on ball and for him to, figure it out. And I think he's going to be able to. He's one of the smartest people to ever, pick up a basketball. I'm expecting big things for LeBron James in Game 3.
I am too. I mean, he was awesome in the first half last night. Yeah. He was incredible.
Fantastic. In the second half, though.
Yeah, he only had 2 points, so that is obviously less than ideal. All right. Any other thoughts on this series? Because we've gotten ourselves in a nice little clock pickle, Anthony. Okay, let me ask you this. Yeah. When we reconvene on Monday, it'll be game 4 is Monday night. Game 3 is tomorrow night. Yes, what's the record in the series?
Lakers 2-1.
I actually agree with you.
Lakers 2-1. I think game 4 is going to be the most pivotal game in the entire series.
I agree. I think the Warriors will win that. I also think they win 5 and 6.
I think they win 5. Ooh, 6. Ooh. Close it out in LA. So Craig got he got Warriors in 6. I have Lakers in 6. I've been consistent with it. And
wait, you have the Lakers winning the series?
Yes. I have Lakers in 6.
Anthony, what of the previous 20 minutes of us talking about this series possibly makes you think that's a good idea?
I understand the Warriors may be the better team. We've seen this before, though. We've seen when the Thunder lost to the Warriors. The Thunder had the better team in 2015. They had a better team.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't.
They were up 3-1. Andre Iguodala even said it. He was like, they had the best team. And
they were playing better at the time. However, the Warriors were the better team, as evidenced by all of the evidence of the entire season where they were the best team in basketball, getting back to the print the shirts part of the discussion?
All I'm saying is Andre Iguodala, who was a part of the series, admitted. And the Thunder were up 3-1. They were up 8 in Game 5 of the series, and all they needed to do was score 1 point. Kevin Durant failed them. Russell Westbrook failed them. They needed 1 point, and they would have beat the Warriors that series. Momentum, they'll switch after the Warriors got that dub. But all I'm saying is we've seen the better team lose series before. We've seen the Golden State Warriors in 2016. We saw them lose. Granted, Draymond Green did not.
Sure, yeah. If someone punches someone in the nuts, then that could change the series.
But I'm just saying, Game 7, they had a chance. They came up short. It was one game. So I'm just saying, we've seen better teams lose in these situations. And I'm thinking LeBron James, this is his last push, his last, championship push. And I'm thinking he's going to be able to get over the hump and get past Steph Curry and these Golden State Warriors.
Okay.
Let's talk about this Monday. Let's see where we are.
I don't. When we get back, what else is going on this weekend? Your weekend preview is next.
Daniel Snyder has agreed to...
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Wrapping up the show, final half hour here on the Team 980, the team980.com, the free Odyssey app, youtube.com/@theteam980, and anywhere else that you possibly could think of listening to this radio program. Weekend preview time brought to you by the same people who bring you EJ's Stat of the Night. That is nobody. But Anthony, there's a lot of fun stuff happening this weekend. We'll start with kind of the old school race, if you will. I don't caveat it. It's the Kentucky Derby. Do you care? That's my question. Do you care about the Kentucky Derby?
I don't necessarily care about, but I know a lot of people on Twitter will be, wearing their fancy suits and, they'll be putting their bets in, and I'll be seeing it on my Twitter. So if they care, I guess I sort of kind of care, but not really.
Yeah, I don't care at all. I know it's a huge gambling weekend. That is why most people care. Horse racing has been legal to gamble on far longer than most of the sports with humans playing, if you will.
Yep.
I do wonder over the next decade if that causes a severe decline in interest, but I don't know. The Kentucky Derby still, I think, gets pretty good ratings for NBC. Obviously, it's an enormous spectacle if you actually go. It's one of those things where if I was told, like, hey, you've got free tickets and a free plane ride,
You're there.
would I go? Probably.
I think I would go.
Yeah, like I would. I wouldn't necessarily cancel other plans.
Would you cancel brunch at the Spirit game?
No. If I was already committed to going, like, no.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a private jet, someone get at me. But
PJ.
yeah, I know. Have you ever been on a private jet?
I have not. I would love to go on one, though.
Same. Again, I feel like last time we talked about private jets on the show, someone reached out to me on Instagram and was like, my boys got this, that, like they're looking for sponsors. That email never made it to my inbox. I gotta check the spam filters on that one. Because I would like to, anyone who's got a legitimate actual private jet company, call me. Your boy would take it. Better than collecting airline miles. My gold status on American is nice. A private jet is better. I think I would only also make, like, it's one of those things too where, like, if I'm home on Saturday, like, if obviously, as we've said a million times on the show today, like, I'm in South Carolina, be with my parents and my wife and my grandmother. If we're home at the time of the race, then maybe I'll flip it on because it's literally 2 minutes. Am I going to watch all the lead up? Definitely not. Am I going to watch any of the coverage? No. Would I make a point to be home to watch it? No. If I happen to be home and there's nothing else happening, will I flip it on for the 2 minutes? Is it exciting for those 2 minutes? Sure.
If it's a great race, will you tweet about it?
No. And now I feel like I absolutely can't because I said that.
What analysis?
Yeah. Oh, the horse ran faster. In all seriousness, there's been a lot of really scary, sad news out of Kentucky Derby, out of Churchill Downs this week. Multiple horses had been euthanized, and another horse just pulled out with like an injury or illness or something. So, the sport of horse racing is a weird one, and it's kind of got some real dark stuff to it. We're gonna keep it light, keep it funny, and just say maybe I'll watch. Definitely gonna try to watch F1. This weekend. It's in Miami, one of 3 races, I believe, that's in the U.S. this year. Miami, Vegas, and and Austin, which has been the traditional race in the U.S. Vegas is going to be sick. But Miami this weekend. And Anthony, are you into F1 at all? Are you an F1 guy?
Nah, I'm not at all. But I know somebody's going to be racing in one of the cars. It's like a celebrity. I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure someone's going to take a lap. There's not actually going to be like a celebrity racer.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens all the time. Those races are gigantic events. So I was never an F1 guy, never a racing guy. And then we started watching literally like last month. So everyone who's been watching the show since it came out in 20 whatever, I know I'm late. But Drive to Survive on Netflix is incredible.
Do I need to check this out?
Yeah.
Because I have a subscription.
You do. You're going to be hooked. Don't do what I did, which is, I mean, you could. we did. We watched the most recent season, and then it was so good. It's like, okay, we're gonna go back and start over. Just start at the beginning. Start in 2019 or 2018, and then you get like the 2018-19. We're in the middle of season 3, which is 2020, which is obviously wild because of COVID. And then 21 was like, I knew from based off facts, it's like an insane season of F1. And then last year, 2022, was also pretty nuts. So
I need a new show anyway.
It's awesome. It's like, imagine Hard Knocks, but for an entire season. And instead of one team, it's an entire sport.
Yeah, that's dope.
It's awesome. And what I really want to do for the show is, because people are in F1. Like a lot of people watch it, right? Monsters, not globally, but like here in the U.S. now, in part because of this Netflix show. Like my timeline during an F1 race is like a lot of people tweeting about F1. I really want to get Will Buxton, who's one of the journalists who's featured in the show, on the show, and I want to just alternate questions. I want to do not like a gag interview, but kind of a bit where it's like, all right, I'm going to ask you a question about like, hey, this weekend they're racing in Miami. What does this team have to do? Like, what have been the problems with this team? Like, real like interview about what's currently happening in the sport, and then alternate questions with, okay, so I was watching season 2 of the show, and in 2019, Lewis Hamilton took this penalty, and I still don't really understand it. Why is the sport this way? I think it'd be fun.
We got to make it happen then.
Okay.
Got to make it happen.
All right.
After I watch the show, though.
Okay. Fair.
Give me a couple of weeks.
Okay. It's really good. It's really addicting. The episodes are only like 35 to 50 minutes too, so it's not like they're hour long every single time. A lot of them are like only 30. But yeah, F1's in Miami this weekend. Practice has been happening. Actually, I think they're might be having practice right now. Their second practice. Third one's in the morning. Qualifying tomorrow afternoon. Race is on Sunday. Max Verstappen and Red Bull on top of the standings going into the weekend, and I think have a big enough lead that they will stay there. But obviously, plenty of challengers trying to break through down in Miami. Then you mentioned earlier Spirit playing this weekend. This is a big one. Also, you talk about star power. Alex Morgan and San Diego Wave are in town. 1:00 game at Audi Field. My one regret for picking this weekend to come see my parents is that I don't get to go to the game. We did talk to Spirit star Trinity Rodman earlier this week on the show. If you missed it, definitely worth going back, checking out that interview. It's on our YouTube page, youtube.com/@Craig Hoffman, at the Team 980 on YouTube as well, or, of course, in our podcast feed. Not only Alex, who actually is, I think, probably questionable for this. I think she's missed the most recent match for San Diego. But Naomi Girma, who is one of, if not the best center back in the U.S. women's national team, also plays for San Diego. So you get an incredible kind of offense-defense matchup between Naomi and Trinity and Ashley Hatch and the Spirit. And you can go and have brunch at the game, which I just think is such a great idea. Go have brunch and then sit in club seats, which, by the way, the club seats at Audi are sick. There's such a good view of the game. So that's this weekend. Nats have been playing really, really well. They're out in Arizona, 9:40 tonight. How about a walk-off yesterday? You love to see it.
Alex Call, baby.
Yep. By the way, did you see the video of Charlie calling the walk-off?
I have not.
So everyone's got booth cam now, which is awesome. And I saw the video on I think it was on Charlie's. Maybe the Nats tweeted it out. I think it was on Charlie's Twitter today, though. Charlie Slows, of course, the great voice of the Washington Nationals. And kind of the casual nature of the way Charlie looks while his voice is just hitting every inflection perfectly. Like, Charlie, every time I watch Charlie speak, I can't believe that's a real human's voice. And he just talks like that. He's like, this is Charlie Slows, and we have a baseball game, and we're telling you a story, and it sounds the most polished and professional that you've ever done. But, like, if you're watching me speak, if you're watching on YouTube right now, you're seeing me, like, really try to sound like that. I can't just sit here and have the voice because it doesn't really, I'm, like, mumbled, and it sounds like crap. Charlie just talks like that. He's incredible. It's so good. It breaks my brain. I feel like I'm being tricked every time. So go check out Booth Camp. Check out do you have it up right now?
I do.
I know Real Things is next. Can we just play the call now?
It's his second appearance of the series. Worked the perfect ninth on Monday.
Alex Cole swung on and hit deep to left, down the line toward the corner, way back, going, and gone! Goodbye! It's a game-winning walk-off home run for Alex Cole on the first pitch from Brad Boxberger. Bang! Zoom goes Cole as he trots in from third and spikes his helmet, and his entire team mobs at him home plate. A Curly W's in the books with a walk-off game-winning home run. Final score, the Washington Nationals 4, the Chicago Cubs 3. Unbelievable.
What a pro. Charlie Slows, 106.7 The Fan.
Effortless.
Nationals Radio Network. And by the way, Dave is just as good. How did we get so lucky? By the way, you know where Dave went to school, Anthony?
Syracuse?
Yes, sir!
Really?
Yeah, he's a Syracuse alum.
Good gracious.
Why? Because almost all the great ones are.
Yeah.
And also, we went there. All right, when we get back, we will wrap up our weekend preview, some predictions for the NBA games tonight, and real things real people said into real microphones. But first, a look at what's trending.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
Nationals again, 9:40 tonight, their first pitch in Arizona. That is tonight, the first of 3. First pitch, 9:40, pregame 9:10 on 106.7 The Fan. Boston, Philly tonight in the NBA. Celtics at Sixers. That series is tied at 1. James Harden erupted for 45 in Game 1. Joel Embiid came back in Game 2, but Boston able to even that series. That one's on ESPN. So is the nightcap. Denver, Phoenix. Phoenix trying to avoid the 0-2 hole. Of course, no team in NBA history has come back from, they're trying to avoid the 0-3 hole, and no team in NBA history has ever come back from that. Josh Harris's New Jersey Devils down 0-1 to the Carolina Hurricanes. Game 2 of that series tonight, 8 o'clock on TNT. That is what's trending. I'm Craig Hoffman on the Team 980. Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I got distracted because Anthony is giving his Friday dance. The song is going on far too long. We tolerate it for a little bit, Anthony. Whatever. It's Cinco de Mayo. We're having fun this weekend.
I know you love that song. I know you do.
It's an earworm, man. At some point you got to give in and be like, it was successful for a reason. Something about the mass appeal.
What are some other like catchy? Is this one of the catchiest songs that's ever been produced?
I mean, there's plenty of them, but that's
this up there. It's up
top earworms of all time. Let's see. Mbop, that's a good one.
You said the bop.
Mbop by Hanson.
Oh, I don't know that song.
What?
How does it go?
I'm not singing.
No, I know how it goes.
Okay. You give me that easily. Oh, here we go. Top 10 earworms, songs that get stuck in your head. These are there's some kid song stuff in here too. Where'd the list go? It's a Small World from Disney. Who Let the Dogs Out, Baha Man. By the way, that song's terrible. Do you know what that actually is about?
Who Let the Dogs Out?
Yeah.
I don't.
It's basically like they think people, like women specifically, who are ugly. It's a pretty terrible song. Like it's like you go listen to the words and like think of it through that. That's what they're talking about. And you're like, you guys are misogynistic jackwagons. I hope that you lose all of your money. The Lollipop Guild, Wizard of Oz, Silver Bells by Bing Crosby.
Yep.
I've literally never heard of that song. That one, no. The first 5 on this list were good. Second one, not very good. And now the page is non-responsive. Cool. Let's not crash the computers here at Odyssey Greenville, who has been nice enough to host me today. And now this is not responding. This is bad. Okay. Whew. There it went. All right. Anyway, the point is, that's a fun song. It's a Friday tradition. Sorry that it's stuck in your head, and it probably will be for the rest of the night. All right, Anthony, quick predictions for the NBA. Let's just go series by series. Where do we sit when we reconvene on Monday? Boston, Philly, they play tonight. Will they also play again on Sunday?
Yep.
All right, what do you think this series is by Sunday?
It's 1-1 right now?
It's 1-1 right now.
I think it'll end up being 2-2.
I agree. I think Sixers win tonight. I think Boston wins on on Sunday, and I have absolutely no idea how the series is going to turn. I feel like I'll have a much better handle on this tonight after I see Embiid play again.
Mm-hmm.
If he looks a lot more like himself and plays a lot better, and the Sixers win, then I probably stick with like a Sixers in 7 kind of deal. Yeah. But if he's not 100%, I think Boston takes this, maybe even in 6 games.
Uh-oh. Yeah,
I think it'll be 2-2 by Monday.
Yeah, 2-2 for sure.
All right, Nuggets and Suns. They play tonight, and then they play on. Come on, man! These computers were killing me.
Should be Monday
before the show, and then they were behaved all show long, and now
should be Sunday. I mean, sorry.
It should be, but like the other Eastern Conference series got skipped.
I got you.
All right, we're just Anthony. I'm having a terrible time with this.
You want to know what's crazy?
What?
So our internet is also down.
Let me see if the wireless is working on my laptop. This is the worst radio we've done all day, and I sincerely apologize to the audience. By the way, something I forgot in the weekend preview, Mystics preseason gets started too. So shout out to the Sticks for getting started. All right, Sunday we get Nuggets Suns as well. So they will have played twice. That series is 2-0 now. What is it by the time we reconvene on Monday?
It'll be 3-1 Suns. The Suns, 3-1 Nuggets. Sorry. I had a slow moment right there. 3-1 Nuggets. The Suns are too good to get swept, so they will get a gentleman's sweep. So 3-1.
I agree with that.
I think they win tonight.
I think the Suns win tonight. I think they are in a real trouble in this series. I think Aaron Gordon was built in a lab and took an extra 10 years once he got out of the lab to develop into someone who can like guard Kevin Durant as well as anyone. And I think that is a huge problem for the Phoenix Suns. All right, Knicks Heat currently 1-1. Game 3 tomorrow.
You might not like my bold prediction, but I'm going 3. Oh, no. There's only one game.
Yeah.
All right, never mind. It'll be 2-1 Miami Heat.
I agree. I think the Knicks are in trouble here.
Yes.
The Heat have a swagger that's scary. They're going to need a team to beat them, and I don't think the Knicks have enough to beat them. Yep. They don't have enough offense, especially on the road, unless RJ Barrett actually packs his scoring for once.
Or Juju gets back to being an all-star. And
I think the Heat can get. He's too easily rattled. The Heat can get inside his head.
I agree.
Warriors and Lakers, right now 1-1. We just get tomorrow night, prime time on ABC.
Lakers win tomorrow, 2-1.
That's what I was leaning. There's something about the prime time though, man.
Come on, Craig. Come on, please. Hey.
Yeah, I think the Lakers can get game 3.
There we go. I need that good juju right there.
And then I think the Warriors win 3 in a row.
See, we're just going to block out everything you said after 2-1.
I actually think there's a chance that I don't know, man. Something about this Warriors team.
It's going to be good either way.
It is. All right, let's wrap up the show, shall we?
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
All right, Ant, you're driving today on Real Things. You said we got something with Draymond's son?
Yes. So yesterday in the post-game show, Draymond's son joined
Hold on,
him.
post-game presser, post-game Draymond podcast.
Post-game presser.
Oh.
Post-game presser. And his son didn't necessarily quietly agree with him.
Didn't
cooperate?
Last
night I was in the gym. He was here with me. Olive was here with me. And, they love that. And so I think it's,
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
And it, it just pushes you way harder knowing that they're watching every single thing you do.
Yeah, his son, I don't know. Draymond tried to say, he was in the gym with him, and his son just didn't quite frankly
You wasn't
agree.
with me shooting. You were with me shooting in the gym. Son.
Why he did that to him?
Why you got to do dad like that? He's probably just being annoying. Because he sounds like he's at the age where specifically boys are extremely annoying.
It makes sense then. But then the daughter also chimed in and was like,
yeah,
no,
she's just copying. That's funny. Well, actually, we don't have time for anything else because there's 20 seconds left in the show. I doubt they'll hear this, but thank you to the fine folks here at Odyssey in Greenville for hosting me today. This was fantastic, but excited, Anthony, to be back with you on Monday. We'll see you 4 o'clock Monday for the Hoffman Show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening on the Team 980 YouTube and the always free Odyssey app. Have a great weekend.
Hey, I'm Craig Hoffman.
And I'm Logan Paulson.
And together we host